I am pretty sure we've all been there at some points in our lives. It has been a long and tiring day on school or work, and night is starting to fall. Still, we have to get something to eat, but we lack the will or time to cook a proper meal. And so our eyes fall on the still open supermarket down the street, with microwavable meals or instant noodles. Cheap and usually not so healthy, but filling enough to still that hunger, so we can close off the day and get some rest. Meet our protagonist Sato-Yo in this exact same scenario after his first day of high school. But as soon as he reaches the aisle to buy a half-price bento, disaster strikes and he blacks out. Not knowing that he walked into a war zone, where he has to fight for his right to eat, or he walks away licking his wounds giving into starvation, because he lives in the wacky world of bento. Bento is an anime from the fall season of 2011, made by David Production, who are best known for the adaptation of this fairly unknown manga called JoJo's Weird Adventure. Maybe you know of it. And it's not even close to being considered one of the best anime of that year. But I love it. It has this indescribable charm to it which makes watching every episode an absolute joy, and it is one of the anime I keep coming back to if I want to rewatch something silly and funny just to have a good time with. Bento has everything that makes an anime. A high school setting, over-the-top fights, cute girls, the power of friendship, a swimsuit episode, Buffy jokes, a weird premise, a class president with way too much power, and fan service. So you're either going to love it for all it's worth, or roll your eyes at it and hate it. But if you hate most of those things, why even watching anime anyway? So what is this show about anyway, you might wonder? Well, it's basically Anime Fight Club, however the fighting takes place in the public supermarket instead, and the grand prize is being able to eat food for the night. But in order to do that, our protagonists need to defeat all the opponents, so they can be the lucky winner to purchase a few discounted bento that are left at the end of the day. And if you question why no other customer in the store reacts to any of this going down in any capacity, stop it this instant. You are thinking too much. This isn't the anime for you. Don't worry about it. Just turn off your brain and enjoy the ride. It just seems to be an activity that is widely acknowledged. From onlookers to the store clerks, no one asks any question and just accepts it. There are even some characters willing to starve themselves to death in order to make themselves fight more ferocious in order to win, or resorting to dirty tactics like beating people down outside of the supermarket. It is all very serious business, I can assure you. The story begins with Sato, who after his first day in high school finds his way to the nearest supermarket, lamenting that the student dorms he now lives at only provide breakfast to the students, so he has to find a cheap way to score some dinner. The only story you get about him is that his entire life has been quite ordinary and nothing special ever happened to him, other than at one time he almost got blown up by fireworks. But as soon as he reaches a discounted bento aisle in a supermarket he blacks out, and the last thing he remembers seeing is a pair of thighs from the person who just kicked the shit out of him. However, the other events of the day he completely forgets about, until he repeats the same mistake the next evening and gets beaten up by the same mysterious silver-haired girl. During the day he ran into a few girls, one with glasses who seems to act a little weird around him but seems to know him. A mysterious silver-haired girl who warns him about the supermarket, but as he doesn't remember her kicking his ass, the warning gets ignored. And the class president, who simply beats him up for just hanging out with the glasses girl. Now you might think, this guy met 3 girls that interacted with him in various degrees on his first day in high school, so this must be a harem, right? No, you'd be wrong. Harem is one of the few tropes this anime stays clear from, so fret not, viewer. It is clear that there is only one girl for him by the end of the show, however, if they get together is up in the air. Unless you have read the light novel somewhere and know the conclusion. However, when I last checked it was not translated unfortunately. And the other things that you want to know about him is that he really likes spies and legs. He's a bit of a hopeless pervert. Oh, and he really likes Sega games, to the point I wonder if this is all just an advertisement from Sega, with how often we see Virtua Fighter being played. Hell, even his phone wallpaper is Sonic for God's sakes, along with some posters of him in his dorm room. After getting his ass handed to him twice in the supermarket, he ends up stumbling across a half-price club, where he once again meets up with the glasses girl named Oshiroi and the club leader who tries him twice, Yarizui. And she promises to teach them all about the bento bras, and teach them what it is to be a seasoned fighter worthy of being called a wolf, as for now they're nothing but helpless starving dogs. Yarizui is a stoic type, initially not showing much emotions, but she warms up to Sato over the course of the series. She's the best fighter in the West District of the city and feared by many for how often she is victorious, and she's the last remaining member of the Half Price Club. a club created seemingly just to get fighters together. There exists a spin-off manga that goes a bit more into her history between her and her upperclassman, which shows up a few times in the show. But in the show itself it doesn't really get alluded to, which makes sense since the spin-off came out around the time the anime aired. You might think that with her on the team, our main group is assured of a victory, but it's not always the case, as fights still adhere to some sense of realism, despite the episode premise, making the fights more engaging than you'd think. The third reel in this story is Oshiroi, who I call a little weird, but it turns out she's just a massive fujoshi. Writing her own deranged stories and publishing them online, using Seto as her inspiration for all kinds of homoerotic scenarios. Now, you might have thought Sato would be the biggest pervert of the group seeing how the first episode went, but that is doing Oshiro a disservice. She exists to insert as many possible sexual innuendos as possible, and you either find it funny or hate her with a passion. As for me, while I might be an adult on paper, I'm clearly not mature enough, as she constantly manages to get a chuckle out of me with the deranged stuff she comes up with. However, there is some nuance to her, as the later gets revealed she always got bullied as a child, and the reason she hangs out with Seto and Yarizui is because they don't judge her and they act friendly towards her. On paper, she is the weakest fighter of the group, and often just manages to sneak past all the fighting and mix it out with the bento. She participates in the least fights as well, sometimes just sitting them out altogether to write more horny fat material. The class president Shirue is a common recurring sidejack who fawns over Oshiroi for some reason. It doesn't really get explained what she sees in her. She's just a hopeless lesbian, blissfully ignorant of Oshiroi's darker interests, and seems to like dressing up any girl she can get her hands on in cute outfits. And she exists to punish Seto for the sole offense of hanging out with Oshiroi, or things that happened to her, resulting in a lot, and I mean a lot of beatings, even if none of it is his fault at all. There is this one random classmate from Seto we see a few times throughout the show, who is secretly jealous of him getting beaten up because he's a massive narcissist. Every single one of these characters in this show has some sort of issue, I swear. The last main character we introduced is Shaga, and she's Seto's cousin. She is nicknamed the Lady of the Lake and shows up in episode 4, and she got that nickname after falling asleep next to a lake. I'm not sure if these nicknames are either a joke or a show of respect. She initially wants to start some shit with Yarizui on her turf and see how she holds up against her in a fight, as she is one of the top fighters from the East District of the city, but she ends up becoming a close friend / rival of the gang and tags along with many of their outings in the later half of the series. And she is very hands-on with everyone really, to the point that the horny police has to stop her. I know I said they were cousins, but it's fine, don't worry about it. It does seem to make Yarizui a little bit jealous how close her and Sato are at times though. Episodes of the show include events like fighting off the school's Kendo Club who tries to force them to join for their own personal gain, taking down an unstoppable duo of twin sisters that everyone fears, Sato being hospitalized because he jumped after his favorite Sega console after it got thrown out of the window on the 5th floor of the school, a classic swim pool episode, because of course we gotta have one of those, or get this, prevent an all-out war between the west and east side of the city, orchestrated by a mastermind who is willing to kill for control of all supermarkets in town. As I said, this show takes itself very serious, and it's perhaps this absurdity the story just rolls with is why I love it so much. All the while we in Sato learn various important rules Wolf should always adhere to, such as Rule number 1. You will wait until the store cleric is done discounting, as they are a god that graces your bento with discount, and fighting in their presence is insulting. Rule number 2. Never take more food than what you can eat, as it is dishonorable to other combatants. One meal is all that you are getting. Rule number 3. Never attack anyone who is already holding a meal, for their fight is concluded and they've proven victorious. And rule number 4. Always pay respects to those who fought and lost, before partaking in a well-earned meal. Some of the frequent faces and opponents / allies / friends they meet along the way consist of the brunette, a big booba girl whose face we never see. The monk, who is bald, but a chill guy. Goatee, whose design makes me think of countless other side characters in other anime. And the wizard, a cooler guy than you will ever be and he will get all the girls. It doesn't take long for Sato to win his first meal, getting all eyes on him. And after a while he even earns himself a nickname, much as Ismay perhaps, as he gets recognized for all the wrong reasons. But people start to recognize, respect, and in some cases even get cautious of him in due time. There is never much time wasted in setting up the stakes, and the fights are never drawn out like so many shonen series fall victim to. However, if anything, I wish the fights lasted a little bit longer, as they are easily the highlight of the show, as they are very well choreographed, and thanks to the sound design you can feel the impact of the blows being traded. But there is also ample room for the characters to interact and grow outside of the supermarket brawls, and a decent amount of comedic slice of life segments spread around. One downside I would point out is that there was a bit of a lull in the action for 2 episodes after the pool episode, where we get a bit more comedy and Yuri fanservice. There are probably going to be some people who do not gel with the fanservice as much, and some of the humor might fall flat as well, but each to their own. The show had me in stitches various times with the slightest gag or joke made, and even had me laughing at the music playing in certain moments. As an aside, all the episodes are named after the food they will be winning in that episode, except for episode 11, which is called Pocari Sweat for some reason. I wonder if this is another sponsorship just like Sega.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
Speaking of that music, the soundtrack for the show is stellar, thanks to none other than Taku Iwasaki, better known for the soundtracks of Soul Eater, Katana Gatari, Gurren Lagann, and JoJo Part 2. And you cannot tell me that this song wasn't the inspiration for the now famous Pillarman theme that he would create only a year later. Every time it started playing an out-of-place comedic scene, it just got me laughing badly. The opening theme Live for Life by Ivy is pretty nice, however, I might be biased because I still listen to it frequently. In the later episodes, the second half of the song gets used, and the opening has some new visuals that go with the new chapters that have been introduced throughout the series. Episode 4 for some reason has a completely different opening, mostly showcasing Shaggy in a daily life, but it's kind of forgettable. Honestly, I'd forgotten it even existed until I rewatched it for this video, and I've seen the series multiple times, that's how forgettable it is. The ending is equally forgettable. No, it's not a bad song per se, it's a lot more mellow compared to the opening, but it's a dime in a dozen as far as anime endings go. It also has some music that I would best describe as vibes, making you think about those warm summer nights, which fits the series perfectly, as most of the anime takes place during the night in spring and summer. The art style as well conveys much of the same feeling. It has a typical look to it that you saw often around 2010, and not much anymore these days, as digital art has improved, but I'll always hold a fond liking to it. The art itself is pretty clean, if not a tad blurry depending on what resolution you're watching this on. I have the European DVD release and it's kinda showing its age, and the yellow subtitles don't do any anime a favor. Some shots of the shelves in the supermarket can be a bit distracting, as there are some 3D items used for products, and some of them have rather low texture on the packaging, creating a bit of a weird contrast with the characters that are traditionally drawn while being surrounded by these low poly assets. But overall the anime looks good, especially in those night scenes, and I feel those really convey the atmosphere they set out to achieve. This show does well in making me feel nostalgic to an older time, when I roamed the town after going to school. And when I look at when the show itself released and see it's from 2011, it makes me feel nostalgic all over again for a different era. What can I say? Nostalgia is a prison, and I'm its inmate. And it is with that I rate this show a very biased and nostalgia-laden 8 out of 10, and I will easily give it a seal of approval. At first I wanted to rate this show a 7 instead, just based on the memories I had of this. But upon rewatching, I got once again pulled into its absurd world. It got me invested in the daily struggle of these groupers all over again, and had me rolling on the floor laughing at the jokes once more. Now I will admit, people are probably going to disagree with me rating it that highly, as for most it's probably just an average anime without much special to it. And I would agree with that. Bento is not there to teach you any important life lessons, nor is the peak of storytelling and fiction. Still, I can't help but love it as much as I do. Bento is love, Bento is life. And you are free to disagree if you want to, such is the spice of life. It's just a good time in my eyes, and every episode I watch just makes me want to see more of it, making watching it a pure joy and hard to put down. Making it all the more sad that we never got another season of the show. It's not like there's a lack of source material either I've seen, but alas, it wasn't meant to be, just as many other anime out there that never got a sequel. Watching the show, however, might prove more difficult than one would like, as it wasn't Funimation, and I'm unsure if it ever got moved to Crunchyroll when it got taken over, and the whole mess going on with that currently, God knows what's going to happen to it. However, you could probably find the series on alternative websites, if you catch my drift. Each to their own in that regard. Or you can obtain the series physically as it's still being released, and at least still available in the European retailer of frequently used. So it shouldn't be that hard to find. Also, the option I would recommend, as digital media can easily be lost and you won't be getting anything in return for spending your money if this happens. And with that, I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a good day. This was my name is Zora, and I'll see you next time.